Hello, we are going to talk today about reporting patient safety issues. What do we do when we know there's a problem with how an electronic health record is designed or implemented, and we keep seeing it over and over again, and other people at other hospitals have the same problem? How do we deal with that? So what types of patient safety issues with electronic health records used in hospitals in particular might benefit by reporting, analysis, and mitigation? So let's return to fundamental principles. Charles Billings was a very well-respected MD, medical doctor, who also had a pilot's license. And he set up what was called the ASRS reporting system, which was the Aviation Safety Reporting System. And what he really emphasized was that you cannot hire a statistician to count things and hope that that leads to system improvements. So he put the pilots in the middle of the loop. So you have a narrative that captures the story. You, at that level, have experts looking at it and intensely thinking about what these narratives mean. Then coming up with some kind of index, which is a tagging system. So the index itself is not the outcome of the analysis. So the example that he would give was runway incursions. So basically when planes hit each other on the ground, when they were both on the ground rolling around on their wheels, that's an indexable thing, that the planes are not actually flying when they hit each other. What happens there? So then you have your database and you say, where are all the runway incursions that I can find out of all of these reports that have been filed? I'm going to look at those. And then you do another pilot-centric analysis where intensely looking at the pulled narratives, again, so going back to the narratives, not the indexing, and really trying to say what is going on here. Is it that the planes don't know where they are on the runway? Is that people can't see each other? Is it that there too many planes are coming together all at the same time? Is it that planes are deciding not to go to the runway and so they're changing their direction? What is happening? And then we put out to the field the findings. And so the pilots would read the findings of the ASRS analysis on runway incursions while they're flying these long flights. And then they would further report. So that would spur more, yes, I've seen that. And what you're missing is that there's all these other things to think about. And then at that point, corrective actions start to happen. So after the publication of findings, after sort of the collection of new reports, then Airbus, Boeing, the companies, the FAA, the airplanes, they would say, what are the things that we can do now that we truly have a handle on this? Which then turns into sometimes creating unintended consequences, which might create more narratives, and then you keep going. That's what we're looking for. We are at the absolute stone ages for hospitals in using electronic health records for this. So this is what we have so far is in the reading that you have for this week, which is an analysis of themes for reported patient safety issues at a major set of hospitals. This is an annual reporting mechanism where the tags that were used never changed. And it was looking at, are there software systems that have to communicate with each other? Is that the issue? Is it that people are expecting one thing and then getting another? Is it that we're not making it easy to see that there's two orders that are identical on the same patient? Is it that there are two users who are interacting with some kind of database at the same time and they're sort of overriding each other's inputs? How much do we need programs to be more flexible to cover the complexity? Is there a take or dose feature in the electronic health record? Is it easy to tell when there's truncation, when data are cut off, when there's automatic things that are done, such as autofills or changes of modes? Is it that there's not a consistent way of searching, not a consistent way of having buttons and showing patient identifiers? Is it that the backup system didn't work? Is it that people are consistently not doing work as intended? Or is it that the workflow just doesn't make sense? You don't have the information at the time you're required to enter it, so you're going to have a missing field. And then on the risk types, what is it about identifying patients that's so hard? Because it is, and it keeps coming up again and again. Medication is clearly, medication and medication dosage just shows up a lot. If we don't have something focused on that, we are not focusing on the real risks. It's pretty clear that communication about alerts, data, is not always going to the people who think they need it, and sometimes it's going to the people who do not think it's for them. And then there is, you'll see that this clinical data risk looks a lot like the use errors that were identified by NIST. So when you have data that's wrong, it's kind of hard to correctly care for a patient. And so because these electronic health records did basically start off as siloed databases that then sort of force fit talk to each other, and sometimes older language code, you can have problems because it can be difficult to refresh the data or take data from one silo to another consistently. And then there's always things dealing with regulatory risks. A whole nother look at it is an analysis of help desk calls that were made in the first year and a half after implementation of a new large software product. So basically, what are people calling about with this new system that went in that is changing how work is done? And so there's a lot of workflow and email in basket issues. There's a lot of calls about, sort of boring calls about making sure that the password's right. But one of the interesting things about that is sometimes the roles can be wrong. So you can be labeled a medical student when you're an attending physician and you're wondering what's wrong with the screen, when it's really that you haven't been given permissions to do things that are within your role. There are ordering issues in terms of how easy it is to do the wrong one, particularly default orders. There's a lot of hardware stuff, which is interesting because that's not traditionally in the FDA model for how to think about risks. And then sometimes there's just flat out code errors that are either at the implementation stage or in the development stage. It's unclear, but literally there just needs to be more sort of basic testing of whether or not the system is working correctly. And so sometimes the help desk calls can identify those. In hospitals in particular, one of the very unique things about electronic health records is they have a bed location. So if you think about the outpatient clinic, there's really no bed. Patients are seeing physicians in rooms, but it kind of doesn't matter what room they're in. It's about what physician is seeing what patient. In a hospital, it matters a lot because you're transferring from the emergency department to a particular unit, like the intensive care unit. You're going from the intensive care unit to a particular operating room. And so knowing where that patient is bed-wise, it takes a lot of work, and anytime that gets out of date is a problem. There is a lot of area for improvement at the scheduling level, both for operating room scheduling, but also just for scheduling for when patients follow up, scheduling for services, social work services, other services. And anytime you have a non-routine request, it can be kind of challenging to force fit it into the system. And then clearly, people are calling the help desk just to understand basic features. And so that highlights some gaps in training. And then integration with other software occurs from the help desk calls. So best practices for reporting patient safety issues are to report these unsafe conditions due to design flaws in electronic health record. to not focus on software glitches, but only include reports of software working as designed. So anytime you start analyzing in your reporting patterns, things that are literally because the code doesn't work, you can actually lose some credibility with the vendor and with the people that you're trying to work with, because they'll be like, oh, you're not even looking at anything that is working as designed. You're only looking at the things that we already know are problems and we're fixing them already. Definitely don't report errors, because we don't want to take a safety one perspective and have people say, well, we've sanctioned that person, they're fired, they're laid off, so we don't need to fix the system. And we don't think that the extent of patient harm should be included. So a field that says, was a patient harm, yes, no, is helpful. But the extent of patient harm just kind of leads to people doing analyses based on that without actually digging into the issues, just at the indexing level. And then we don't want to have enhancements, things that people want to do to make things faster, things that people want to do to tailor the care more to their area. There is a need for all that. It should be done separately. So enhancement requests should be handled through a separate mechanism away from the software not working in a way that's safe for patients. And we definitely want to see more reporting where actual patients aren't harmed in order to fix these systems. So in conclusion, indexing on its own does not generate enough insights to enhance patient safety unless you have clinical experts, human factors experts involved. Analyzing themes in reported issues can see changes over time, which is always a good thing. What's new and coming up that wasn't there before. Both processes and outcomes can be uniquely categorized for each reported issue. You can have more than one categorization scheme for each reported issue. And it is interesting to see that workflow shows up more in help desk calls than in reported patient safety issues. So that just shows that help desk analyses can show some insights that might be missed otherwise. Thank you for your attention.